So, first off, we are going to the Holt, Trinity Road. We're going to Aston Villa. Um, Everybody said if they don't get up last season, this is going to be a disaster, and they didn't take their time in. It felt like literally they lost the playoff game, and then all the stories came out the very next day about
Yeah, yeah,
Mr. Winus, the chief exec, and Dr. Tony, and how much money he had.
yeah.
Let's do we do the money thing first, or do you want to do the football thing first? Let's do the money thing first,
Well,
Harry.
well, the money thing feeds in, and because you have that the Tom Kearney goal at Wembley killed them. I reckon it was a historically significant goal, even well in certainly in recent terms, because it's changed everything. Their failure to get back up meant that they were mainly because of their wage bill. It had a knock-on effect in terms of financial fair play with reduced parachute payments, etc. They had a then what came out next was the missed £4 million HMRC payment, which has since been resolved, which then also brought to light the fact that the owner, who is financially, he's very, he's a wealthy man, but he's not able to bring his money across into the UK. There are rules about how much I think he can take out of China, which meant that they suddenly had a cash problem, and they have brought in new investment, but the thing that all of this has cost them is time. And if they could have one of Harry Potter's time turners, I think that would be, they could spin everything back to May with where they are now. That would then give them the time to actually put their house in order, make all the signings that they need. But here we are now, suddenly what, early August, and they're up against the clock. And it did remind me a little bit of Paul Jewell's final season at Ipswich. I know different circumstances where there was lots of excitement about signings that were going to come. Then there was radio silence, and in the end there was a trolley dash and a few last-minute loanees come in just to patch up things. Now, different background circumstances, but it looks like the outcome is going to be the same. In terms of on the footballing front, they extended Alan Hutton's contract for by 1 year, and last night I saw the news break that they've got a keeper in, Portugal under 21 international Andre Moreira from Atletico Madrid on a season-long loan. So that's the full extent of their rebuild, having missed out on the playoffs, and it's the problems they've got structurally within the squad, it lacks balance, and that will ripple through certainly the first half of the season if they can't do something quickly in the transfer market.
Harry, when I saw all this breaking, I was like, "Oh my God, they're screwed. Here comes a fire sale, then a new Portsmouth or what have you. This is going to be an absolute disaster." Are they kind of safe-ish now? I mean, we're not going to see Grealish go for 4 million or massively undervalue thing. Are they okay? Have you say these investors? Always worries me a little bit when a company or someone needs money quickly, because the
Yeah.
investors must have got a very advantageous deal given the situation Dr. Tony was in. They're not going to be another Portsmouth or Leeds that first time then.
I'd be surprised if they are. I think there's enough stability within the squad, certainly for this coming year, to if they have got financial backing. I don't think there's a threat of administration, for example, which would, certainly the way the fans are talking, there's no. Certainly, reading the forums, there's no sense of a wolf being at the door. But what it has done is just majorly disrupted their plans. So it could be a hiatus. We could be looking at a Leeds type scenario. Now, I know Leeds did drop down to League One a long time ago, but it could well be that they end that the ultimate outcome is that they end up being a bit like Leeds or Sheffield Wednesday, a very big team, but constantly now up against it because fundamentally they've lost the playoff. The parachute money, I should say,
Yeah.
from that playoff final defeat. The parachute money, I think, is the thing. With that now gone, they're battling, because we know that's the big uneven playing field in the championship. They're now in with the rest of us, I
Yep.
think, but rather that than a Sunderland, I would say.
Um,
Yeah,
Football wise,
yeah,
we talked about Borough on the first podcast, and the idea that Pulis was too conservative in the playoffs. Was Bruce the same, or was it just an exceptional Fulham team that had been, practicing this art of strangulation for 2 years?
When you mentioned the word Borough, I knew straight away where we were going.
Sorry.
No, there is just as equally as Pulis is viewed with suspicion by Borough fans. I think it's actually gone a stage further with Bruce with Villa fans. One of them just said tactics with a question mark. They have serious doubts about the model of football they're playing. And it's Bruce has gone back in pre-season. It'll be interesting to see if he keeps this up when the campaign actually starts. He's gone back to 3-5-2, which was the system he used when he was at Hull. When he took Hull up, they remodeled. I remember they had Robbie, what's his name, Keane from the Irish. My brain is gone. Keane from no, not Michael Keane.
Robbie Brady.
Sorry, Robbie Brady. Yes, all these names are kind of conflating on my head. It was Robbie Brady they had, and he played out on one. He was basically one of the wider midfield players. But the 3-5-2 shape they had, it gave them balance, and it gave them a platform on which they were able to launch a fairly decent. Well, they got to the playoffs and won.
Well,
and
Harry,
won
as well. If I'm Grealish and I'm Villa's best player, and I look at that whole team, who was the big African guy who went to Newcastle who played in behind the front?
Okay, I think it was Mo Diame actually who went from Hull to Newcastle.
Yes, yeah.
And you could see Grealish playing in a very similar role for Villa in the coming season. But the problem the problem with 3-5-2 for Villa is that Villa fans say to play 3-5-2 effectively, you need energy and fluidity, and their team is too static. Couple that with the fact that Bruce has been playing players out of position. In one pre-season game against West Ham, one of their fans summed it up. The back five was right back, right back, right back, right back, left back. And in one of their more recent pre-season friendlies, they had it was against Dinamo Dresden. They had El Mohammadi playing out as a right wing back. They had Jedinak in the middle of the back three. Now I think Kodja was injured, but they had Andre Green and Adoma playing up front. Now they're both wingers; they're not strikers. Grealish was in behind them, and you had Bjarnason and Whelan in behind them, and you had Hutton, who's probably more of a full back as a wing back. The other problem was it was too defensive because the two wide wing backs were both primarily defenders rather than often when you play with wing backs, it's an idea to have one who's probably a more of a sitter and one who's more of a winger, as it were. But they felt that with the back five, with Jedinak sitting in the middle, with Bjarnason and Whelan, they were effectively playing with a back seven, and then leaving the three up front. The balance was to a defensive, to static, and there's a lack of confidence. They don't trust Steve Bruce tactically. They just feel that he isn't the man to kind of reconfigure what they've got and take them up.
Is there some parallels, Harry, with Derby when you're reading through those players? And we spoke about Derby maybe moving on from Johnson and Huddleston, Carson, Keogh, these long in the tooth, highly paid ex-Premier League players. When you were reading through some of those Villa players, people like Glenn Whelan, El Mohammadi, is there a bit of a sense that now it hasn't made it that they might need some kind of revamp there?
Yeah, exactly. These guys were brought in to do a job. Terry was in the same cohort. They were brought in, get them up, rebuild in the Premier League, and push on. Now that hasn't happened, the team is actually when we're just chatting about it now, it becomes evident that this squad that's in need of a rebuild, and even if they now have the money, they just don't have the time to do it. So most of them now are accepting that this season, they're not going to get there. We won't have depth. They do feel that there is the guts of a team there, but it does need a rebuild. Who we can fill the gaps with is so important. It's one of the other comments they said. They can't see the season being stable. They're not going to do a Sunderland. There's nothing alarming in that sense, but basically they've lost time. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. They really have lost time. One other thing which hasn't helped is the silence. Because I mean, and that goes back to what I was saying about the final season with Jewel with us. We didn't know what was going on. I remember that there was this, oh, we're going to get so and so. I think him and Clegg were wheeling and dealing, and we were hearing names were being thrown out, and then nothing would be heard. And then suddenly, oh, we're getting so and so on loan at the last minute, Sonko or whoever it would be. And the sense is that there's that the fans really feel as if they're being kept in the dark. But interestingly, on Grealish, there's no kind of alarm bells because it has been silent. They were saying, well, if they don't go up a bit like Traore at Borough, they were saying, oh, he's going to be gone in the morning. Grealish is still there at the moment. That could be a problem as well because will they actually, given that we're so close to deadline day, that's now looming, go back to the time thing, can they now, are they prepared to say, no, look, we're not going to get rid of Grealish, we'll consolidate with what we've got, and then we'll have a look next summer.
I think there's a bit of a sense,
probably do the rebuild.
Harry, with Grealish though as well, that a lot of people have probably looked at him and there's a sense that he's some kind of gamble. Do you know what I mean? That unless he's at Villa where he's in his hometown and he's forgiven anything he does, that he's some kind of gamble. So I think that might be the case. Do you see just quickly a little bit of a sense that they've either stood still or moved slightly backwards while a lot of other teams are moving forward as well?
Yeah, going back to the progress narrative we were talking about with all those other smaller teams with less money, yes. No question. In that sense, well, there is that thing. If you stand still, you're effectively going backwards because other teams are pushing forward. And I think that definitely is the case with Villa. It's two things. It's the playoff defeat and the money, but then also on top of that, they've effectively lost the parachute money and they've lost a transfer window on top of that.